more than 2 decades now, our immigration system, everybody acknowledges, has been broken. And the fact that the Supreme Court wasn't able to issue a decision today doesn't just set the system back even further. It takes us further from the country that we aspire to be. Today's decision is frustrating to those who seek to grow our economy and bring a rationality to our immigration system.
It's about the makeup of America. It's about what the future will hold for this nation. It's about how we're supposed to employ millions of people who come to this country with no job skills. It's about how we are supposed to care for a burgeoning population medically while entitlement programs are still going broke. And it's about the wedge that is driven into America over one issue that with almost a dead certainty will be the one that will turn this election on its ear. But here's what's being missed at the moment about immigration. Whine and complain about it all you want. But what is actually being done to settle the issue in the most bipartisan method possible, if that in and of itself is even really possible. Let us not go forward without asking for your phone calls and opinions on the immigration issue. 1-877-Newsmax. 1-877-639-7629. Get on the line right now. Prepare to add your distinctive voice to the conversation. Let's get to this special edition of The Political Animal, digging into the contentious tale of America, immigration, and why a certain candidate maybe needs to stop backing up on veiled hints and promises. First of all, she is the veteran immigration lawyer and columnist for the Philadelphia Daily News, Christine Flowers. He is senior writer for the conservative political magazine Opportunity Lives, Israel Ortega. I want to thank you both for joining us. Christine, ladies first, so I'm going to begin with you on this. We heard the president coming in. Let's get away from what the president said for a moment. Let's separate this, please. We have an immigration problem in this country that is nothing new. It has been going on for as long as I can remember as a kid. We have congressmen, senators, elected officials who do nothing about solving this issue, trying to at least come together and getting something substantive and with common sense. So I ask it to you as an immigration official, as an immigration attorney. Where do we go from here?
Well, first of all, hi, Ed. Great to be back. It's really the hottest topic right now, especially in this election year. Where do we go from here? You made the absolute correct frame of reference when you talked about bipartisanship. The problem is we haven't been able to arrive at a bipartisan solution. And I blame both sides. I happen to be an immigration attorney, and my sympathies, my affinities tend to be with the Democratic Party with respect to immigration policy. On the other hand, I understand the national security and the economic concerns of conservatives, of the Republicans, because I happen to be a social conservative, so I do empathize with them. I think that we are not going to arrive at a bipartisan solution until we realize that this is a bipartisan problem. This is not hordes of refugees coming into the United States and bringing Islamism with them. By the same token, this is not simply your grandmother and your grandfather's Ellis Island history. This is a group of individuals who are in the United States, who will remain in the United States regardless of what happens in Washington, D.C., for the near future, because as President Obama indicated after the decision last week, he is going to simply ramp up his attempts to deport criminal aliens and keep the prioritization of families, of parents of U.S. citizens at a lower level. So again, it's a bipartisan problem. And with all of the sniping back and forth across the aisle, we're not getting anywhere. And I think that's why President Obama took the action that was the subject of the Supreme Court litigation.
Israel, let me bring you in on this, because there's also prioritization, which I think Christine hit very well here, because there are people on the right who feel that this president is prioritizing putting people into this country who don't belong here, who didn't do it legally. Here's the thing, and this is what I hear from a lot of people, and I heard this last week. Well, wait a minute here. All these people who complain, these immigrants who are here, they complain about the fact that they may have to leave. And I get this shot back in my face all the time. Why didn't they do it legally in the first place to be here? That's what has people angry. I got to shout back sometimes that the way the system is right now, it's so screwed up you couldn't do it legally if you tried. Where's the reality?
That's right, Ed. I mean, that's exactly right. Right now, it's very hard if you are a poor Honduran trying to come to this country legally. There's simply not a good avenue for you to do that. And if you want to try to do it the legal way, it's gonna take years, if not decades, to come. And so I think that's part of the problem, is that we, as Christine was articulating, we don't have the leadership. We don't have the ideas behind getting something together that would bring both sides together. And that's a problem. But I'm happy that the Supreme Court struck down what President did, because the president simply can't just go around Congress and try to do this without the consent of Congress. And I'm glad that this is a victory for me, for the rule of law, a victory for the separation of powers. And I think now it goes back to Congress. They've got to do the job and figure out a way to do it.
But what you just said there, and I'm sorry, I'm laughing with you here. When we say sending it back to Congress and they should do the job, I'm going to be very frank here. What the hell makes anybody think they're going to make a difference now when they haven't done it for 30 years?
Right. No, and you're right. And you're right. But look, immigration is federal law. I mean, it's federal policy. So Congress does have a responsibility to address this issue. I'm with you. I mean, I'm pessimistic. I mean, the chances of something getting done this year are pretty low. And then, regardless of who's president next year, it'll probably be a divided government. So yeah, chances are low. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be asking and pressing Congress to do their job, particularly on this issue.
Should we not, and Christine, very briefly, because I want to take a couple of phone calls in here, should we not also look at the fact, and we got to bring the Brexit into this right now, because there are people right now looking at this saying this was not fueled by economic grievances, because Britain wasn't suffering any harmful economic effects from all the new migrants. They're saying that it's all xenophobia. How much of it is irrational xenophobia around the world right now?
Well, it is an element of the debate, and we saw it with some of the rhetoric that Donald Trump was employing earlier in the campaign about banning Muslims and what have you. Very, very gross outlines of a very subtle topic. But I don't think it's necessarily fair to say that all opposition to this is xenophobia. There is a sense that we simply cannot carry the critical mass of people who are coming into the country. It's not the identity of the people that is coming in necessarily that's upsetting a lot of Americans. It's the mass of individuals and the fact that we can't identify who they are. That's why I think it's important to have some mechanism to identify them, to classify them, to give them some kind of documentation.
What I've had people talk to me about, as I say, how are we going to afford them? Quick, let me get some phone calls in here. Rich from White Plains. Rich, I know you came in for something else here, but let me get you on this 30 seconds. What's your take on this immigration issue and the fact that it doesn't seem to ever get settled?
Hey, Ed, thanks for taking my call. Okay, look, you took me by surprise, but I'll give you an intelligent answer. I want to take issue with your guest, because while there is a separation of powers, I do believe that the president does have the power exclusively to dictate immigration policy.
Okay, wait a minute. Hang on right there. Christine, from a legal standpoint, what's your take?
Well, the issue wasn't so much that the president didn't have the authority to dictate immigration policy. It was the separation of powers between whether or not those executive orders that he implemented violated the Administrative Procedures Act, for example, that they weren't implemented in a way that would have followed the constitutional procedure. I happen to agree with the caller that the president was authorized to take the action that he took, and I am disappointed that the Supreme Court fell along those 4 lines and said that he did not. But it is within the purview of the executive. This is something that the executive and the federal government in general has the right to administer.
Rich, 20 seconds to you. Your retort to that?
Well, I'm glad she ultimately agreed with me, and I think that, yes, that something needs to be done with regard to the president implementing a new policy to vet people from terrorist-sponsored states, something a little bit more articulately stated than what Donald Trump has.
We still need something, but we got to start somewhere, and we're going around in circles. It's the way it always works. Rich, thanks a lot for your call. Christine Flowers, Israel Ortega, I want to thank you both for joining us. We could spend hours on this, quite frankly. We could spend hours on phone calls on this. And what won't happen is it still won't get settled unless the people we put in office decide they really want to get something done, protect this nation, and make it fair to everybody. Rock on, true believers. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow night. Good night and good luck.